Hello, welcome everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful Thursday. A few things to mention before we jump in. You may have noticed that when you all join, your mics are muted currently. So if you have any questions or comments, we do encourage that you utilize the chat functionality during the presentation where our team will be able to reply to you. Once the webinar concludes, we will then move into a live Q&A, which we will then allow users to unmute their mics and ask questions to our team in real time, but more on that afterwards. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Michael to give you all a brief message. Over to you, Michael.
Hey, thanks, Hayden. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the SharePoint Concierge webinar. I'll take 90 seconds for those that might be first-time attendees. Why we do this, Microsoft rolls out new features every 2 or 3 weeks, and that's across 365. So SharePoint, Team Stream, Planner, OneDrive, the Power Platform. And what we noticed is clients, after we would implement an intranet, checking in 6 months or a year later, they were unaware of these. So for about 2 years now, we've been putting on 10 webinars a year. This is the August webinar. And this service, this is free to the public. Anyone can attend. If you're part of our SharePoint support agreements, you can attend these, but you also have access to our learning site where we put any trainings, white papers, the decks for these webinars, the recordings of the webinars. It's an extremely valuable resource. So with that, that's what we're going to be showing you today. In fact, we're starting off with Ken Lewis today, and I'm excited about this. Well, most of the features he's going to talk about have been inherent in SharePoint. It's probably the most underutilized feature set within SharePoint. So you're going to get an introduction to information architecture, taxonomies and folksonomies. And this is going to introduce you to it or remind you of the power you have to organize your content. Again, we've done this for 18 years. There's so much possibility here to keep information neat, clean going forward, make the user experience better. So this will be one of several sessions coming in the next month to help enhance your knowledge, I guess, of what's available to you. If you need some help with this, reach out to us. So with that, welcome everyone. And I'll turn it back to Hayden, who's going to be our moderator today, and he'll introduce the presenters.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, we do have a jam-packed schedule today. Let's go ahead and look at that real quick. We have a wide range of features. We'll be starting off strong with Ken Lewis, who will be teaching, like Michael said, an introduction to information architecture, focusing on taxonomies and folksonomies. And if you don't know what those words mean, that's 100% fine. Don't worry, that's exactly why we're doing this teaching. It's also a very needed topic of discussion for any companies, no matter the size. So stay tuned on that. Following Ken today, we will have Leona Lamont bringing us up to speed on SharePoint autofill columns and the Microsoft syntax. And then we'll head over to John, who will be teaching us some useful Microsoft Teams information, including slash commands, how to use them, what they are, when to use them, and really the abundant amount of them, so that you can really maximize efficiency by utilizing them. And then John will go over some file image preview that will also be found in Microsoft Teams chats and channels. And then to wrap us up today, we do have Katie, who will be showing us off the brand new banner web part, which has been a long-awaited web part solution, and we're so thankful it's finally here. Well, for most of us, that is, but I'll let her speak more on that at the end. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in with our first topic today, Intro to Information Architecture, taught by Ken. Over to you, Ken.
Great, thank you. So information architecture is a very dense topic. So we're going to just barely scratch the surface today. So one of the things I want to extend to everybody is that we do have an offering in this space. We offer consulting around this. We also have a data migration offering. And so if you have a need to have data moved, whether those are documents or actual data that you have residing in some other source, and you'd like to talk to us, or if you have data currently on your SharePoint and you just want to structure it in a better way, love to talk to you about it. So I'd like to begin with a set of foundational concepts just to kind of get everyone oriented. So SharePoint sits on top of SQL Server. It is essentially a front end to a very powerful database engine. And with that in mind, everything in SharePoint effectively is a list. So all the lists are obviously lists, but so are the document libraries. And what that means is you can associate metadata columns, just like you could in an Excel spreadsheet, that will define the information that you have either in a list or in a library to allow you to sort or filter or group that information. And what we see a lot is that people will use the list architecture quite a bit because it makes sense to them, but they won't realize they can do the exact same kinds of things in a document library. And where you have to be careful when you start to use these tools in the document library is you're going to want to keep your taxonomy, which is your top-down information architecture, or your folksonomy, which is your bottom-up information, your grassroots information architecture, intact and as clean as possible at all times. And today's discussion is going to talk about some tools that you can deploy, specifically some column types that you can deploy, and when you should deploy those column types to help you with that data hygiene. Because keeping your data intact and keeping it healthy, that can be a Herculean effort if you don't set things up kind of the correct way, if you will, from the beginning. So through the content type and site column architecture, SharePoint allows you to build once and deploy many times across your entire tenant. So the tools that we're going to look at today, you can put online directly in a list or a library, but you can also use those up at the tenant level, and you can deploy a master content type that uses master site columns that are across your entire tenant, and that's going to keep your information as tight as possible. There is one caveat to that, and that is that the lookup column, which we will look at, it has some special handling needs. It can still be a tenant-wide level discussion. It can still be a drop-down value used everywhere in your tenant. However, you do have to use some third-party tools. They're not really third-party, they're Microsoft, but they're non-SharePoint tools, such as Power Apps, because that's what allows you to tie onto the data sources in a clean way. So when we're looking at the content types in the site columns and you're developing your strategy, you're going to want to start to think about what types of information should be common across everything that you're touching. What we see a lot are things like customer or client or department or category that gets deployed as a common concept no matter where content is stored. And that occurs both in lists and in libraries. Client is extremely common. We do a lot of B2B work, and our partners are out working with their customers, and they love to have their customer information at their fingertips in a CRM-like format, and to have a master source of truth is critical to them. And so we see that quite a bit. We also see columns again like category, where we want to use consistent language across the enterprise for categorizing information. You'll see that in things like product category, or you see things in terms of documents, for example. The document categories tend to get standardized. So you don't have one team calling something an SOP and another calling it a procedure. You all land on what it is that you're going to call it. So you've got all of these different site columns available to you. And through the site columns, single line of text, date fields, you've got choice fields, lookup fields, manage metadata columns. Which one is right is the question. Well, the single line of text fields suffer from the problem of people mistyping things, typing things in a shorthand way, HR as opposed to human resources, and so on. That limitation can cause huge issues when you're doing data roll-up, or if you're trying to filter or group consistently. You run into issues where you have to filter on IT and information technology and technology because it's been entered 3 different ways, because the column that held that information allowed people to enter in a free-form way. So what's the resolution? How do I enforce that data integrity? I can choose a choice, a lookup, a manage metadata column, or a special column which allows the Folksonomy technology to come to the fore, which is called enterprise keywords. And that is a variant of manage metadata that gets enabled in a different way. So we're going to take a look at when would you use a choice, when would you use a lookup, when would you use manage metadata, and then we'll look at the enterprise keyword concept as well to show you what power that can bring. If you're still starting down your path, you haven't gotten very far with building your taxonomy, you might deploy enterprise keywords so that you can turn on the folksonomy, the bottom-up approach, and still gain some data structure over time. So I'm going to ship to my demo now, and we'll take a look at a demonstration that I've built out. This is a common list. This could just as well be a library. The tools look identical, with the exception being that in a library, you start a record, obviously, with a document. With a list, you can just go in and build a record. So if we take a look at the different field types that we have available to us, so we'll put in a test ID, right? And so then I can come in and I can say, well, I've got all these different categories. Why would I choose a choice field or a lookup field or a manage metadata column? So if I look here, I've got my categories. This is great. And this is fantastic if you have a fairly short list. This actually is a very long list, about 75 items. So it can hold quite a bit of information. Where it starts to become problematic when you have a lot of information is the long-term maintenance. You also cannot do easy categorization within a field that is a choice field. So I can't break these into sort of ownership groups. That would be a problem if I was looking at a hierarchical taxonomy. So let's say that I was looking at an organizational structure field and I wanted to have things by geography. So I would have things by, EMEA, and I would have things by South America and North America and so on. I couldn't easily take a choice field and break that up. Now, there are tricks you can do visually to put spacers in between. People know not to select those, but that's really far from ideal. So the choice field, extremely fit for purpose in my mind. If you don't need a hierarchy, you have a fairly short list that's static, it's not going to change very often, then you can use a choice field. If you deploy that choice field at the tenant level, and you have a tenant level site column attached to a tenant level content type, you now have a value that is centrally managed, that is deployable across your entire architecture. And that's huge because now people are picking the value. They're not just on the fly trying to type in human resources versus HR and so on. So choice, good starting place. But if you need a little more power, then the lookup field comes to the fore. So the lookup field gives you a few additional pieces of power from the choice field, one of which being that in addition to being able to pick the value here, I get an inheritance that comes along with picking the value. And what I can demonstrate on that is if I pick this and I say this is an agenda, you'll see when I save the record, I'm going to get some carry through values for that. So I get this column here, which is what area is that category associated with. And again, that's a hierarchical concept. So I have an agenda, and that's part of the project management hierarchical grouping. That came across automatically. I didn't have to enter that data value. And that's because lookup lists allow you to do that pulling across of additional information. So it's an incredibly powerful feature. But lookup lists, when you're using the native user interface, suffer from the problem of locality, which means the lookup list has to be local to the data that you're loading. So in the case of the lookup list that I'm using that's associated with this list, they are co-located on the same site. And that's because they have to be. There are tricks that you can do, but they are hacks and we don't recommend them to get you to tie on using the native user interface to look up lists that live in other areas. But what you can do is utilize a UI such as Power Apps, which can talk to any data source. It can then talk to your lookup lists and it can pull that value. Now you do lose the inheritance capability, which is a native capability when the lookup list is local with the current list that you have, but you still have the ability to have that lookup list, which means if I click on agenda, I see the agenda record, which can tell me a lot about that agenda. It can give me its hierarchy, its owner, a description of what that term means if I'm building a data dictionary, and so on. So the lookup list can add a great deal of power. It acts as a choice list, if you think about it. However, it gives you these additional features, and it really only has the one architectural limitation, and that can be overcome for free using the Power App. So if we go back in and edit the record again, we'll look at the next and last field type for the structured portion, and that's the manage metadata. Manage metadata is a class unto itself, and that's because there is an entire tool that you have to sort of master, I would say, because you really do have to understand it well in order to curate your terms correctly, and that is the term store. Term Store offers a centralized location that you can work with to build out taxonomical hierarchies within your organization that can then be deployed either site-wide or tenant-wide. You can play with the term store to get comfortable with it on any site in your architecture. So a lot of our clients will put up a test site, a place that they know is completely safe to play with because they can't break anything. If they do, they'll just delete the site and add it back in as another test site. And when you have that available to you, you can go into your site settings and you can go into term store management. And under term store management, you're going to see the term store. This interface is going to look the same no matter where you engage on it. It should be the modern interface. You'll notice this is classic, and then it suddenly shifts from a UI perspective to modern. And that's because I'm actually tying on to a central data management control interface that sits behind the scenes that can be accessed in a myriad of different ways. And this is one of the ways. I can go directly from my site interface and go into the term store. Here I can see I have global term groups and I have site level term groups. Normally you'll see this. You have view only access to the term store properties. You'll get other warnings that tell you you can't really interact with the global term groups. And that's because unless you have been given the proper administrative privileges, you won't be able to do anything with the global level. And that's because the global level is where the hygiene kicks in. We have to keep that information as ticked and tied as possible because that's what's feeding my entire taxonomy across my tenant. But I can play with the site level because the site level is tied to my privileges on this site. And so I have the ability to go into the site level. I can go into my local area here, and then I can see my categories. And so I've got categories and categories by area. So what's the difference? Well, if I look at the category, this is exactly what we saw with the choice list, which is it's just a series of categories, one after the other. It's structured exactly like the choice list. But when I look at category by area, I have an intervening taxonomical hierarchy here where I've taken my terms, my categories, and I've put them into clusters. So I have accounting categories, I have communications categories, and so on. And you can have that up to 7 levels deep. And there are times when 7 levels is absolutely appropriate if you have a very dense product mix, for example. That's extremely common to have that many levels. What's very nice is that you don't have to build them here. You do have to maintain them here, but you don't have to build them here. You can actually import them. And there is a very nice spreadsheet that comes along with this process that is part of this user interface that you can use to build out your taxonomy in Excel. And then you can just do a one-stop import and you'll have everything in place as of day one, which makes getting your term groups, your term sets, and your terms in place really easy because you can do all your work in a paper build on the import tool and then bring it over. If you make a mistake, you delete it, make the adjustments that you want, bring it over again. Now you're good to go. From that point on, then you can manage this tool. The reason that manage metadata is so immensely powerful is because unlike choice fields and lookup columns, if you wanted to take something offline and you wanted to tell somebody that a term had been deprecated, you can do that through this interface. So I can go into, if I look at my demo again, I've got some terms that are sitting out here, such as contract, for example. And I can say, oh, you know what, we're not going to use the term contract anymore. We're going to use a different term. We're going to use the letter K, which is a legal shorthand for contract. And so I could go into my legal area and I could change contract and I could say, you know what, contract is actually going to be deprecated. And so what that does is it turns off the ability to select contract, but it leaves contract in my hierarchy for those items that have been tagged already, which means I'm not going to have data loss. But the next time that I go in to interact with a record where a term has been deprecated, it's going to tell me I have to now replace that term with a now active term. It's going to highlight it in red and it can give me that approach. So the term store is an area that we really love to work with you on, get you educated to it. There are roles and responsibilities that come along with this because there is a governance and curation set of roles. There are owner roles, there are stakeholder roles, there are contributor roles. But we would love to work with you on this and help you build out your formal taxonomy through this tool so you can then create manage metadata columns which tie on to this data set and allow you to show that data again in a common way in any list or library across your tenant. The last field I want to look at today is a field that is a Folksonomy field, and that field allows you from the ground up to build out your Folksonomy and turn it into a taxonomy. So if I edit the record again, I can come down to this enterprise keyword. Now, enterprise keyword is actually a library level function, and so in a list or a library, you can engage enterprise keywords. It's a toggle switch that you engage at the list or library level. When you turn it on, it will add the enterprise keywords field to your infrastructure. So you'll get it as a column that you can add to views, and you'll see it on your forms. If you turn it on and then you choose to turn it off, there won't be any data loss, but you won't be able to interact with the column anymore. So what a lot of companies will do is they'll start with enterprise keywords, and then over time they'll shift to the managed term sets that are in the term store, because that's the structured top-down taxonomy. You can have both running simultaneously. There is really no harm in doing that, and there are clients that have elected to do that, because what this allows you to do is if I don't see a value up here and I'm missing something, I can always request that the value be added. There is a send email to add term feature that's available in the term sets. But if I want to tag right now, I can then use the enterprise keywords. And so I can come in and I can type out a value, and I can see what other people have added. Right. And so I can see if people have added something. If they haven't, I say, oh, well, you know what, I need to add, Project Antares, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and just add that right now, right? It says, that value wasn't found, but now I have it, and it's something I can then sort or filter or group on as I go forward with the record. So I hope that helped today, get you started thinking about your taxonomies, thinking about how you can structure your data. Remember, everything in SharePoint is a list, and so all of your document libraries should be making at least light, if not extensive, use of this metadata concept. But this is something that we see adds an immense amount of values, particularly as people start to move away from the subfolder construct, so you don't have to navigate 5 levels deep into your folder hierarchy to find something. You can start to tag, and you can start to tag in a way that keeps things incredibly consistent and clean across your entire tenant. So with that, I'll hand things back to Hayden.
Thank you so much, Ken. Michael stated this earlier with saying that was the first of many to come for the information architecture segment. But the things we talked about today not only will help you organize your content and make sure users are interacting with the data as they need to, but it also grants you some additional ways to maximize your content, to take it to that next level with cleaner data for either day-to-day workflows or even data analytics. So I'm so excited that Ken is shining a light on this. It's already a functionality that exists for you in everyone's tenants, so we might as well utilize it and get the most out of it. Some use cases just for some food of thought. Not only a way to store good data, but a reporting tool, project management tools, ticketing system. I mean, really the opportunities are endless. So hopefully that sparks some curiosity for information architecture for you guys. But with that said, all right, let's go ahead and move to the next segment, which is taught by Leona, who will be teaching us more about SharePoint's autofill columns in Microsoft syntax. Over to you, Leona.
Alrighty, welcome everyone. Yep, today I'll be talking about the new autofill controls for SharePoint document library columns. This is a brand new feature. Specifically, it's a premium feature, so just make sure to be aware of that. What it is it uses Microsoft syntax to automatically extract, summarize, generate content from files uploaded into a SharePoint document library by using the large language model, LLMs, through a generative AI. Autofill columns can save metadata automatically, streamlining the process of managing your files and their associated information. So kind of to ride on the coattails of Ken, this is a new feature that allows for you to upload documents and you providing a prompt on a column to say, go ahead and go try to find this information from within inside this document, and it will automatically populate that metadata columns. Things that we've already kind of discussed with Ken. Two things that you're going to hear a lot today is going to be document libraries. So again, this is only going to be applicable to documents. There is no list autofill columns currently. I assume that probably won't even be a thing, but it will be specifically to document libraries. And also it will apply to specific metadata columns. On this next slide that I'm going to show, this is just some very basic information for you guys to be aware of. As of right now, this is only available for English languages as of this moment. There is also a number of specific file types that it does work on. So CSV, pretty much any of the Office document types, image files like JPEGs or PDFs, PNGs, things as such. And also there's only certain types of data that can be kind of auto-populated currently, which are going to be pretty much alphanumeric fields. So text, multi-line text, numbers, yes, nos, date and time, choices, hyperlinks, and currency. So people and groups, location, images, lookups, and managed metadata currently is not available through this autofilling control. Also, again, this is a kind of more of a premium feature, which there is a syntax pay-as-you-go. So that also needs to be configured, in which there is documentation that supports that idea. So we'll go ahead and kind of jump into how easy it is to set up and how it kind of gets deployed. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a document library in front of us. As of right now, we can kind of see that there is some columns in here being presented that are showing some values. Those are currently actually pulling data in from these documents that we have here. So a prime example might be you're an organization that has a specific document type, let's just say SOWs as of this moment, that you will continuously upload into a document library in which you know there will be a number of pieces of information that will be kind of universal across them all. Budget, summary, client name, things as such, in which you go, hey, you know what? We don't need somebody to always rekey this information in. We can go ahead and have the LLM kind of handle that for us. So if you ever wish to update any of your existing columns, we'll kind of show you how to quickly do so now. So in your document libraries, if you ever go to one of your columns, you'll see this new little section called autofill. Again, you can either turn this on or turn it off. If let's say you say, hey, you know what, for whatever reason, the prompt isn't working the way that we expect it, we need to turn it off. You can do so via here. And then if you click this little edit prompt button right here, this is where you will give in your prompt that you say, hey, the generative AI, please go into our document and try to find this information. There is also the capability of testing your prompt to say, hey, you know what? I know that this document right here has an expected outcome. I can go ahead and run my prompt against it. It will attempt to look into that document. It will pull a value out of the document. It may be what you expect it to be. It may not be. And then that's where you can keep adjusting your prompt accordingly to get to your desired outcome. So again, this is super easy, super straightforward. If you've ever used any sort of AI chat tools as of this moment, this will be kind of probably very familiar to you. If you ever need to create brand new columns, again, you would just create your column at the level here. So let's just say we want to make another text one. We'll call this one client name. We'll go ahead and go down to the autofill section here. We'll go ahead and say, what is the client name, if I can type in this document. I can go ahead and kind of pose that as a question. I can go ahead and hit the test button and see if we get a desired result that we want. We'll give it a minute. So as of right now, this is presumably the desired result that I want to have. So I can go ahead and hit save. And again, I can go ahead and say save once I have all the rest of my column configured here. And now we have a brand new column. Now, as of right now, we can see that, hey, it doesn't have any values in it. Because this is kind of one of those pay-as-you-go, until you kind of tell it to run, it will not run on existing items. So again, as you build out more taxonomy in your list or in your document library, it will not kind of retroactively update old columns. And also, if you already have values in those columns, it will not overwrite it until you specifically kind of tell it to overwrite it. So you don't need to worry about the AI potentially messing up your data if by chance you've already been keying in data properly this whole time, and now you kind of want this now to be available to your user base. If by chance you ever do need to go update any of your old records here, you can go ahead and select them. And in the ellipsis, there will be a new autofill button here, which then you click and it will begin running. Now, again, Microsoft says this could take some time, maybe even a few hours. Personally, I haven't seen it take that long, but it's really probably based off the size of your document and how much information it has to scan through. Also, if you ever upload any new documents, so if I drag and drop a document from my file on my desktop, and I just drag this into here, it begins to upload a new document. As of right now, it is analyzing the document, as we can kind of see here. There's also 2 new columns that get generated whenever you do create these autofill columns that kind of tell you when it was last processed and its current status. So if we refresh this page here, if it will run, that is. Again, it takes a little bit of time for it to trigger, so it may not happen instantaneously, but this column will get updated with a pending status indicating that it is currently running through the document, fetching that data with inside the document. Now, another thing to be aware of in the library settings of your library, you can also determine if this should only affect new items or new and modified items. So again, if by chance you have a library that has a lot of items in there and you just say, hey, all the old data is going to be historic, we're not going to touch it, you would likely want to keep this one new. Or if you say, hey, this is a living library in which data is going to be kind of modified on a regular basis, and we want the metadata to reflect that, then you may want to configure the new and modified files. So in essence, you can kind of change between the 2 of these. Once you're satisfied with, you can go ahead and hit the save button. That will update the library. As we can see here, again, it has finished running against our document, and this is the data that is pulled out of there. Again, this is going to be something that is very beneficial, hopefully, to most organizations who go, hey, there's a lot of data that we have in our documents. We want to be able to easily pull it out versus requiring our users to key stuff in. Also, be aware if by chance any of this metadata is ever incorrect, you can just go into the record itself and make modifications to it. So if you say, you know what, this budget is actually the wrong budget, it is actually 122 500, I can go in here, hit the save button, and then that will kind of now be good to go. So again, the AI is not going to be potentially 100% perfect, but you can always make adjustments to it if there is any sort of incorrect data being presented. Also, there does seem to be a character limit on text values. So again, I believe it's going to be around probably 255 characters. So again, multi-line text may not be able to pull out the entirety of a document. So just also be aware of that there is some level of limitations on the data that it can pull out of your documents. So again, I just wanted to kind of show you guys this new feature. If you do have any additional questions about it, go ahead and post them in the chat, and I'll pass it back on to you, Hayden.
Thank you so much, Leona. Beautiful. It is so cool to see how AI is starting to integrate within most, if not all, Microsoft softwares and applications. And at the end of the day, this comes down to time saving. You know, content management can be a full-time job in and of itself, maintaining the content, making sure it's correct and all that stuff. And so anything that we can do, any tools that we can help incorporate to help go ahead and pull out that data for us, well, we might as well use them and get that underway. So with that said, we are going to take a quick pause on SharePoint and talk a little bit about Microsoft Teams today. And to do that, John will be showing us both slash commands found in Microsoft Teams, as well as file image preview. And these will be found in both chats and channels. But without further ado, over to you, John.
All right. Thanks so much, Hayden. All right. So slash commands are a great new tool that Microsoft has recently added to Teams. This is something that potentially you may have come across already if you were used to things like other chat apps like Discord, right, where they have bots in there and you use Slack to pull those up. I accidentally came across these completely by chance, right? I just hit a Slack and I started seeing all these commands come up. So what is this? And actually, it's really, really convenient. So what it does is it allows you to take very quick control of Teams, all on your keyboard. You don't have to mess around with your mouse at all. You just do it in the search bar or in the chat window. You can change your status. You know, if you want to show that you're available or show that you're busy or do not disturb, you can do that really quickly with a slash command. You can change your chat, right? You can open up a new chat window, or you can call someone directly, or we have a new tool where you can give someone praise through Teams. And if you have any data that you can present, you can use Power BI inside Teams now to show those in a graph. Very cool. And you do those from the search bar, right? And you get some different commands that come up if you're using the actual chat window. So you can do things like if you're in a group chat, you can potentially delete the chat. And what the convenient thing though is it only deletes it for you. It gives you a warning first. Are you sure you want to do this? Other people will still be in the chat, but it removes you and deletes your entire history. You can hide chat through the slash commands. What I've found with that is it's a little bit clunky in the sense that once you hide it, it's gone forever unless you know the chat name. There's no way to actually go back in and say that you want to. You can't just go back. You can't go searching through your chat history and find ones that were hidden and pull them back up. You actually have to search for those and find them and bring them back. And you can also do some productivity activities, like you can record a 1 minute long video. You can add shortcuts. You can add Loop, which is an app that is built off of AI that allows for team productivity, where people can go in and they can collaborate on activities. And I'll actually go ahead and show you these here. Let me share my screen and show you some examples of that. All right, so here we are. We are clearly in Teams. Let me drag this guy out of my way. So right here from a search, we can type slash and you can immediately see what is available to you. We've got ways to change our status. As I mentioned before, we can do praise, we can bring up Power BI, and there are options for news, weather, stocks, and YouTube. And so far, in my testing with these four, I found that they currently don't actually work, at least not in our tenant. If I use these, we just get the Microsoft spinning wheel of death, and it never goes away. So I think Microsoft is still working on these. However, the important part, right, is we can come in here and I can say, I'm available, right? Instantly changes my status to available. Or I can say, do not disturb. Now I'm back in do not disturb. People will, in theory, leave me alone and not message me while I'm presenting, right? I can give praise. And this one does seem to be a little bit funky as well. I got it to work earlier, but all day today when I've been testing this, it keeps saying it's missing a channel ID or a chat. So it's being a little bit funky as well. But you can give people praise. I can show an example of one that did work for me. And yeah, let's just say I want to, and I'm offline. There we go. Now I'm offline. Let me put myself back to available. Okay. Now, if we come down to the chat window in a chat, not Teams, but inside a chat, we can come here and we get some different options. I can do a new window if I want to just pop this out in a whole different window and do my messaging here. And I can still see my other chats, but I don't want to work in there. I can have a new window. I can, let's see, I can record. I don't think it'll let me do it here. It won't let me do it while I'm presenting, but it will bring up a window right here that gives you a 1 minute countdown. You can record your face, you can add backgrounds, you can do all kinds of fun things if you felt like you wanted to send a recording to a chat. Let's see, what else can we do here? Scroll through. Loop, this one's pretty neat. So this is an AI tool that I found here where you can collaborate with a group of folks, right? You can do a bulleted list, you can do a checklist. Let's do a task list, because this one's pretty neat. I found that this actually ties in directly with Planner. So if I add tasks and I assign one to myself and do a task 2 and I assign this to, let's give it to Katie. It'll actually tag Katie that I'm giving her a task. I can select dates and so on and so forth. And what we'll do is we'll tie these in. It's not going to work here because I'm in a chat and she's not in this chat. But if I did it through Teams, it would. It will actually generate a planner and we'll add anybody that I tagged in here to this plan. And I assign tasks to them and allow to collaborate together on a project. So a lot of fun things you can do here. Let me come in here and show you how it works in Teams. And as you can see, I've been playing with this, and actually, it's already conveniently showing us what I'm going to talk about next, which is file image preview here in Teams. So let's see. I believe we get a couple more options here in Teams versus a direct chat. Yes, so all right, we can add code. This one's pretty neat. If you ever tried to send code to someone via email or via chat, you may have found that it's a bit of a bear, right? It causes all kinds of issues. Microsoft flags it as potentially dangerous, things like that. We can actually come in here and we can say we want to send code to someone, and it lets us choose what type of code do we want to send. We can say we're sending Python, and we can copy and paste it in to the chat, and it actually comes up with all the syntax and everything. I think I've got a sample up here. I don't. I did it somewhere, but anyway, if I did it, you would see that all the color coding shows up for that language. It adds all the indentations. It is really, really convenient. Very cool. Be able to send code directly here in chat. Let's see. And you could add apps. So if I wanted to add the Praise app, maybe that was the issue I had before, was I didn't actually add the Praise app and why it wasn't working when I tried to test it out earlier. You can add Power BI. Any app that's available here in Teams comes up immediately through /commands. So that is all I had for the moment on /commands. There are far more that are coming out that Microsoft is working on to make it even better for you, more productivity. There's going to be ones to pull up activity and immediately see recent activity. There's going to be one for mentions where if you've been tagged anywhere, you can type /mention, and it's going to pull up every instance of where you've been mentioned throughout Teams, so you can find those really quickly. And they're constantly updating those, so the easiest way to discover anything new is just simply come in here, type / and see what comes up. So very convenient. All right, so the next discussion is the image preview in Microsoft Teams, which you can see right here. I've done some samples already. So it used to be that anytime you added attachments in a Teams chat, it just added files down at the bottom. You could see the file name, and that was it. You could possibly see that it was a PowerPoint, or it was a Adobe document, or it was a Word, but you couldn't see what it was. You had to open them up and actually open those to see what they were. Very convenient that Microsoft changed this recently. Now, as you can see, anytime you add it, whether it's an image, if it's a PowerPoint, if it's a Adobe, so on and so forth, it shows up here and you get a preview of it. So you can already tell what someone has shared with you. And yeah, you know, okay, somebody shared with me the Adobe file that they want me to take a look at. I know right away, yep, this is the one. I don't have to, if there was multiple Adobe files, I wouldn't have to go, well, which one is it that they want me to look at, and open every single one and find the specific one they want me to look at. There it is right there. I can see exactly what the file is in a preview. Works for YouTube as well. Whenever you add a YouTube link, there we go. We get the image of the banner for that YouTube video. Very, very cool, right? Here we are. Here's another one. Here's a Word doc, and you can see, you know, it's not super easy to see what the text is, but if it had a header, things like that, you could tell what you're actually working with. Oh, here we go. Here's an example where praise did function properly for me. I gave Hayden here praise for being an achiever. And you get to choose different medals or different images here, and you can actually write in a whole write-up if you wanted of what they did to earn praise. And here is another example of Loop. This is just a collaborative area to write up. That was weird. A paragraph, right? So if we had a project we were working on, I can tag these folks in, add a sentence, and then they can actually continue to add to this paragraph. It'll keep expanding as people add their text in, and we can collaborate on any type of project that we may be working on. All right, so that was everything for me today. So I will stop sharing and I'll pass this back over to Hayden.
Thank you so much, John. Slash commands can really help supercharge the user's efficiency within Microsoft Teams. Instead of having to go through a lot of different settings and things that they may not be comfortable with, just being able to type out what they want after a slash may be really beneficial for them. And then, of course, the file image preview. I don't really want to skim over that because not only is that an ease of use kind of feature, but in a world where people are kind of hesitant, and rightfully so, to click on random links that are sent via chat or via email, anytime that you can see a file image, it helps identify what that actually is. I will say it isn't a fail-safe, of course. Still use best discretion when clicking on any link in a cybersecurity realm. But it is nice to have the file image show up, show you what what it contains and things of that nature. So, all right, thank you so much, John, for that. I do want to lead us back into SharePoint for our last topic of today, which will be led by Katie, who is showing off the brand new banner web part in SharePoint. It's very exciting, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Over to you, Katie.
Thanks, Hayden. So this is very exciting. This is the newest addition to the SharePoint Creator updates. So users are now going to be able to remove the title area, which is no longer mandatory on the page. So the title area is actually getting updated and rebranded as the banner web part. So now users are going to be able to add one or more banners to any page, column, including full width, vertical sections, all of that. This change is expected to finish rolling out by the end of late August, but it has already been pushed back, so hopefully we'll all see this very soon. But let's take a look at how this works. So it used to be that when you created a SharePoint page, using the template, it either didn't give you a banner, or if you made new pages, you had a few options. You had the image over title, just the title, the over box here, and lastly, this one here. So with this new update, they've added two more layouts as well. So if we come to new to create a new page, and we'll just use the visual layout to start. So we can see now that the new banner web part has a bunch of new functionality here. So if we go down to the features, there's the two new ones, which is the fade and author. So the nice thing about fade is that it actually correlates to the theme that your page is using. So you could see right now that there is an image behind here. If I was to create another banner here, so this is an example of how you could add it anywhere on the page. You can see there's no image onto this fade background. To get that image back there, you can go to a normal image heading here, add the image that you would like to use. And then if you go back to fade, you'll see that image right behind there in that faded theme color. So you could add these anywhere on the page, or if you don't want a banner, you could go ahead and simply delete all of them. So one thing that is nice now that you could delete the banner is you could save the page title right here in the command bar. So you could say, this is the new banner. And you're not going to need to have that saved in the page title anymore. So a lot of possibilities with this new functionality. It is going to be, it is available on both communication and team sites. So that's a really awesome feature as well. And it will also, when you email the news pages, it is going to work the same way as the current title area works. So you will see it in email, but it will have a slight variation. So you would see the image just above the title in the email. But we are definitely looking forward to a lot of the other features that are coming out to help create SharePoint's page beautifully. Back to you, Hayden.
Awesome, Katie. Thank you so much. You know, at the end of the day, a cleaner, more professional looking page without taking up a bunch of real estate is most of the time what's needed, and what we look for all that. So that does conclude our learning portion today. A special thank you to Ken, Leona, John, and Katie for today's presentation. We hope we've sparked some new interests and creativities for you guys and the functionalities that you and your team can explore. Please be on the lookout in your email for our next webinar, which will be in September. We are looking forward to learning with you next month again. Before we segue into Q&A, I do want to remind everyone that all of the webinar notes, slides, and recordings will be within our learning portal for easy access to everything discussed today. It'll include the notes, the slides, the recordings. If for some reason you don't have access or you'd like to gain access to this learning portal, please reach out to us after the webinar and we'll make sure you're taken care of. Our learning portal is where you and your team will not only get the materials for today, but future webinar recording and materials as well. So with that said, we are now segueing into the open live Q&A forum. If you don't plan on staying for the live Q&A, I just want to say thank you again for learning with us today. I hope you have a pleasant Thursday, a pre-Friday to your Friday, if you will. On screen, we are showing instructions on how to raise your hand to ask questions to one of our presenters. When you raise your hand, your mic will be unmuted and questions will be taken in order of hand raise. Give a couple more seconds, see if anyone would like to ask any questions before we conclude. All right, it looks like we're good to go. So again, thank you guys so much for coming out today. If in the future you do have any questions, feel free to email us, reach out to us. We're here to help you be the masters of your own content within SharePoint. So thank you all again, and we'll see you next month. Bye.